or whatever creative thing you're doing with other people. All right, here we go. All right, it says I'm live. Sorry for the delay. I've got we have a fun thing here. I've got a special guest, my friend Malcolm, we're going to be doing a fun railfan thing in New York, and he happens to be staying over while I have to do the streaming stuff. So he's being a super sport with appearing on me. Why don't you say hi?
Hi.
Okay, so he's saying hi. He has a microphone that may or may not be working very well. Not because of the microphone, but because of the levels.
Y'all can't hear me very well.
Let me know in the chat, and I can either have him scream, or basically have him scream. So, thank you everybody for coming. This is going to be part 2 of my so riveting editing on West Baltimore interlocking in BOWIE from 2007. If you caught last week's stream, I started off rambling on about West Baltimore interlocking on the CSX Baltimore Terminal Subdivision. The second part of this stream is going to be at BOWIE interlocking in BOWIE, Maryland. This is both an Amtrak interlocking, plus a former Pennsylvania Railroad tower has been preserved there and is a museum. All this took place in the summer of 2007. Some interesting things was going on then. I had a friend, Chris, who had gotten an internship in the area and then promptly managed to break his leg at the company picnic. So a lot of this was me, a lot of these summer 2007 sessions generally imply him being toted around with me. So I might not have been in the best position to do all the photos and whatnot. I'm just going to triple check right here that I have everything up and ready to go. Looks like we're good. I hope Brian's here. I'm not sure he's on the Pacific time, so he might be a little bit late. Anyway, so we're gonna have a short session tonight, which means it'll only go an hour. And Malcolm is here if he has any color commentary to chime in. He is in the rail space, so he might be able to say things. So
I live in DC, so I'm not far from BOWIE, and I've ridden over this line many times, and I've been to the tower there at the NRHS DC chapter library. Nice setup there.
Is that the main area for the NRHS DC chapter, or is it like a satellite location?
I think it's their main location.
Interesting. That it would be in the in a suburb as opposed to somewhere in DC.
Yeah.
But I guess housing prices are what they are. It's cool because I know Baltimore, the Baltimore chapter, which I'm not a part of, but I've done things with. They're located at Baltimore Streetcar Museum. I've been in West Jersey chapter, although I really probably should have been more involved since the Baltimore Streetcar Museum was walking distance. So
DC chapter owns the Dover Harbor private car, and I haven't seen it on the road recently. I don't know what its status is.
Do you know where it lives? Does it live at DC Union, or is it at a museum?
Somewhere out in Maryland, not at BOWIE, but somewhere out. But I guess they have it moved in freight service to some siting where it's kept.
So, giving a start here, the one thing that first comes to mind, and I need to go through some of my books on this, is today people who know their NEC today typically are well aware that between Halethorpe, although effectively Baltimore and DC, although it's really Halethorpe to Landover, but really DC to Baltimore. The NEC is a 3-track affair. Has Amtrak, has MARC, so it's got your track 2, your track 3 for your Amtrak stuff, and track 1 for MARC, and the regional stopping at BWI. And this seems pretty interesting, straightforward. But one of the things that you'll quickly learn going to the BOWIE Tower Museum is that there have been a variety of different configurations in the area, including 2-track, 3-track, and 4-track. So if you're ever at Odenton, you're wondering why the track bed looks a little bit wide for 3 tracks. It's because for a while it was 4-track. I'm not sure if it was all the way to Odenton, or because this is where I say I can't go and give you a timeline. I wish I could of where it was 4-track, where it was 3-track. But you can see whenever BOWIE was closed, or which I assume was before the Northeast Corridor Improvement program, or maybe they just restored the model board. It was 4 tracks north of BOWIE and then 2 tracks south, and I'm assuming that probably went 2 tracks all the way through Landover. I'm not entirely sure. You'll look at old photos, it'll be 3, it'll be 4, but here on the model board, it's quite clearly 2. So I'd love to, at some point I'll go and figure that out. Another interesting thing on this model board, I'm pretty sure that this has been restored at some point. The PR didn't tend to tell the tower operators what things mean, like, what your track occupancy lights are, what your traffic levers are. So I'm guessing that this was restored by the museum. And I'm sorry I'm not starting off with a photo of the museum. That's going to be later in the photo. I just went there and started taking pictures. I was with my friend at the time. He was on crutches, and I think he managed to hobble his way upstairs, or maybe I just abandoned him outside. One thing to notice is your Pope's Creek branch is today most traffic comes from the south via CSX. In the PRR era, you can see that the traffic was directed from the north, since the coal trains would have been coming down from Enola Yard, down through Perryville, through Baltimore, through the tunnels via those were a freight route with the Baltimore Tunnel Helper, and then they would have gone to Pope's Creek down from the north. When Amtrak came in and modified it, they interlocked that south leg of the Y, and that's the default route that the coal trains will take to the remaining power plants in southern Maryland. So just another thing to point out there. This today serves the same function as Carroll interlocking at New Carrollton, where trains on the effective 2 tracks out of DC are able to switch over to this fourth, in this case a fourth, but today would be a third local track. And again, whenever they did the NECIP or whatever modifications for the Metroliner, they extended that third track all the way to New Carrollton, and with the completion of what is arguably known as Hanson interlocking, although Amtrak has picked a different name that no one likes. Now the third track goes a little bit farther to the south at Landover. Anyway, I need to get on this.
Side note, the AC Improvement Project was the first major railroad development project that the FRA was involved with. The first thing they really did, other than safety regulation, was actually towards...
Wasn't the FRA somewhat new on the scene? Because before them it was the ICC.
Yes. Yeah, FRA was created in the late 60s, and just as a safety regulatory agency, but the first time they got involved in railroad development was the NEC Improvement Project. I think there were multiple waves of NEC. I think there was the NECIP 1 and the NECIP 2. I don't know because I think that I remember that I've seen NECIP 2 as so I think it happened in 2 waves, but I forget what the dates are or the amount of money that was spent. I'm looking for my other thing of photos to see what I labeled this back in the day. Here we go. By the way, I apologize. I always forget if it's Bowie, Maryland or Bowie, Maryland. I think it's Bowie. Bowie is how I've heard most say it, but I've heard some conductors say Bowie.
Oh, that's completely wrong.
And Odington.
Who are those people?
Apparently it's like some old invented PRR days that is...
Interesting.
Have said them those ways.
Maybe we're the ones who are wrong. What's going on here?
I know it's not Odington. It's Odington.
What?
Oh.
Sorry, that's weird. Those drivers are screwing things up. Anyway. Sorry, I gotta find where I'm saving this out to. Okay, here it is. Come on. Everybody who watches, the normal people on the stream know my crazy old parents' computer here that I'm on to do these. All right, that works. The first time is always, there it goes. So this is, an interesting thing is that although today the tower, I should probably go and pull this up on the map, but again, I'm sorry for the slow start here. We are on a short set today, so I wanted to make sure I set the mood. First off, despite the fact that it's only one, that it's the first interlocking north of Landover and New Carrollton, it's interesting to note how you think that, there's the border of DC, and you think, oh, New Carrollton's right outside of DC. At this point on DC, it's actually pretty far from the Beltway. So Silver Spring is only about 2 miles from the tip where Silver Spring is only about a mile or so from the Beltway. But on the New Carrollton side of DC, you're looking at a good 5 or 6 miles outside of the DC border. So as Amtrak is leaving DC on the Magruder branch, you're already outside the district right there. Then you're going about another 2 or 3 miles up to New Carrollton. That's at the Beltway, and then you have another 4 or 6 miles to Bowie. Bowie is the start of the Pope's Creek branch. You can see that line going down there. That's, besides being Southern Maryland's generic railroad, it's also served a variety of military bases and, until recently, 2 major coal power plants. And like most coal these days, one is completely non-coal, and the other one, if it hasn't closed yet, is on its way. So it'll be a struggle to really keep those lines open in the future, although there are some online customers. Hopefully the state of Maryland can prevent that line from going bye-bye. Bowie, Maryland doesn't really have a huge downtown. I'm trying to figure out even where it is. Most people know it today from the adjacent state university.
It's right near the tower.
Yeah, it's very low density. If you look down at
from... I've ever gone to do there besides go to the tower is there's one restaurant that has live music that I've sometimes gone to a couple of rockabilly shows at.
Yeah, so you are saying that he's hard. Yeah, the levels on him are a little hard to hear. So to your, speak up as best you can, but
okay.
Is your volume on that maxed out?
As far as I know.
Keep pressing that button.
Testing.
Yeah, just max out the best you can there. Sorry.
Weird headset.
Yep, sorry about that. People who can't hear him. Okay. Anyway. I'll go on this. So the old tower used to be right there where you can see that little square patch of concrete, and the station was right behind it. I had a little a photo here.
What year did they move the station to Bowie State?
I don't know. It was preserved at some point. We can look at all the photos here. So there's a GG1. There's a Delaware and Hudson train. That's not dated. So it's sometime before 1995. And after 1977. So there you go. I think it was related to the NECIP when they closed the tower and redid it. I believe that it would have been 83-ish. But I don't actually know when it was moved.
When was that Bowie State campus built?
I don't know. That's a good question. That's why I have Wikipedia up on one of my screens.
I 1865.
Well, it was a historically black university, but it looked like it became its current thing in 1988 when it went from a college to a university.
That tracks.
So that's when that's probably when the MARC station. So those MARC stations on the line with the high level platforms went in around sometime before 1992. So it could be in that 88 to 92 time frame there. Anyway, this just shows the old location of where the tower and the station used to be. There's the substation, and there's the north leg of the Y. Let me just... Oops. Why does this keep being a dork? There it goes. I'm going to brighten this up a little bit and try to get more into a rhythm here. There it is. All right. Sometimes I get dead air on this. There we go. Wait, where is this? Don't need that one. Don't need that one. Oops. Okay, whatever. Okay, there it is. Oops. I've got extra people here, so it's somewhat disrupting my flow. Okay, here we go. The tower, of course, has a variety of stuff inside. It's got the tower's been well preserved. Has the interlocking machine. It has a mishmash of, so as something that's owned by an NRHS chapter, the campus, including the station and the tower, has become a bit of a repository for miscellany. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that unlike Harris Tower, where they keep it pretty period correct up top, it has been, they throw relays and stuff. There's a variety of miscellany that is kept in the tower. It's open, I know, at least on weekends. They've got docents there for much of the time. Free to visit. I'm sure donations are appreciated. And they've been adding a variety of stuff to it. Here we have the lockers here in the tower. I'm sure that these were in use up through the end of the days. Most people forget that interlocking towers were crew reporting duty stations. So people who worked here would have their defined by whatever collective bargaining agreement and whatnot. They would have not only their work locker, but a hot water thing. In more modern days, they'd have microwave ovens, and everything you would expect in a break room would be also in the towers, which is always fascinating. So I'm going to be trying to use as many of the older file names as I can for consistency between one to the other. Here we have the Model 14 interlocking machine. While the machine itself appears to be fairly intact, most of the levers are in fact missing. Levers of these machines were a popular souvenir item for the crews. They are also a thing that would be used for spare parts. I remember one of my Amtrak friends, when a tower was being closed, he grabbed what he thought was a spare lever, and then turned out he got a call at some point later saying that they needed it back because things were broken on an NEC interlocking. So that's always a fun story. But and this one looks like it'd been picked over by whatever the CNS department for official or unofficial reasons. This is just a little info board they have here. I'm not sure. I didn't look I only went up to the tower when I visited in 2007. Today, the station has all manner of interesting displays. It has a section of a mechanical interlocking plant, just so you can see how that sort of worked. I went right before COVID in 2019, so I was able to get a pretty nice tour of it before everything went sideways. Oh, come on. I've warned some of my viewers is that every so often, not all of the photos are super amazing, but it is nice that where is this? There it is. It is nice that I have the photos available just in case. Oops, might be a little too big. I want to make it so people could read it. All right. So for my friend Malcolm here, what he probably doesn't know. So I generally, this has been pretty. Come on, this has been pretty. See, here's the problem. It's all covered in. It's. I was doing this in low light, so it's all super grainy. But I want people to read it, so I'm just going to do a lesser compression. I try to keep my things under 600K saved, and also I try to do 1280 by whatever, so that they fit on most people's screens. I know that most people today are using higher resolutions and whatnot, but I think that's been pretty good for what's legible, and ultimately for size and other reasons. So now we're looking at the the plug board for the telecom. Again, these are present in a lot of towers. They've been updated over these. Even when I was in Overbrook, Paoli, they wouldn't have the plugs, but they would have a variety of telecom for the block phone, just to connect to adjacent towers. Oops. Probably actually do a thing there. Harris Tower, of course, probably has done one of the more extensive restorations. But most even the late model active towers had their switchboard style telecom stuff redone well before the before the PRR era was over. Those had been retired, so by the time you see them in an Amtrak era, they're like in a corner falling apart somewhere. Just more relays. It's nice that that they have some stuff on display. If I have to give a criticism, I feel like it's hard to display or talk about relays. But at some point, if you put some, I'm sure if someone was able to put some points into them. Oh, I got a bunch of people here. Yeah, they're talking about stuff on the chat. I'll visit you, chat people, in a little bit. It would be nice. I think you could do a bunch of things with relays that wouldn't involve a lot of like PLCs or complicated programming. I think that there are ways that you could do a relay display, even with having some of them work, or just that with you could probably find a way to get them more actively involved than they typically are, which is as a flavor item downstairs in the basement or littered about. I'm not saying it's a slam dunk, but that would really. But right now they're just sort of they're very much of a decorative item. Here's the operator desk with a nice rotary phone and other switch boxes. If you saw that plug board, that one might have been in there when the tower was originally constructed. But by the 1960s, the PRR came through, put in things like these little, modern for the 50s or 60s intercom systems. So those plug boards are often very, nothing anywhere close to have been in service. One thing that I always see in a lot of towers are the phones on the accordion arms. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube. If you're on my Position Light blog, I'll sometimes post video links, and they'll have stuff from the 70s or 80s where you can see the operators using the accordion phones. And those are all over the place. You see them in the West Coast, East Coast. A very popular item for tower telecoms. And here we are looking outside. Now they said if this is and thank you, Malcolm, for letting me know it's actually, I didn't know it was the DC chapter's area. I thought it was just someone who'd done the museum.
Their library.
Yeah, they've done a fantastic job here. This is the old southbound shelter, I believe, and at this point there was a Western Maryland caboose. Today, that's now a Chessie caboose. It hasn't been repainted because this is clearly wood, and that Chessie caboose is not wood. So I don't know what happened to the Western Maryland caboose, but that's what was there in 2007. Maybe they traded it. It's funny when you ever talk to these rail museum peoples, they love trading. I remember that San Diego streetcar, not the San Diego trolley, not the museum, the actual San Diego. They wanted to do a historic trolley, so they were able to trade some of their U1s to a variety of museums in exchange for PCCs. So museums will, if they, they love trading. They will trade stuff for wire, for whatever they need. They will find. It's almost like that episode with the Ferengi and the Deep Space Nine with the Great Material Continuum, where they will find a way to trade for everything they have, since they have no money, but they have weird historic stuff that somebody else needs. It's almost like a kidney transplant chain. Here we have the back of the Model 14. I don't know. I don't have a. I'm looking at. Where is that? Here it is. There's a diagram here. I'm not sure this is an official diagram. I don't have a date. So here we have one where it has 3 tracks in both directions, but at some point that track 1 was removed. I don't know when it was. The whole part from DC and Baltimore is a mystery to me. But it was clearly removed at some point. Oops. And just again, we see the back of the Model Ford. Today, this room has a lot more stuff in it. When I visited in 2019, it was. I will show you a photo of what it looked like in 2019. So in 2018, you could walk around. Everything was pretty straightforward. 2019, the place was filled with stuff. Way more. Not like a storage location type of filled with stuff, but they definitely had collected more items over the years. Let me see here. Let me see if I got a good photo of the room. Oh yeah, here's the new caboose. So it's metal. It's got B&O chassis, painted chassis. You can rent that out for parties. So here we have a new thing.
That shape of the window on the bay window there was the C&O. Was unique to C&O, wasn't it?
The B&O also used the side ones, but they used a different style. So when
that shape of like the shape of the window there.
Right. Oh, that one there.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So this is marked as B&O, but I guess it was maybe a C&O one.
I think that's a C&O design.
So if you see this photo here, there's a lot more stuff. You've got switch targets, paintings. So again, they just have a little. It's not super. It's not cluttered, but it's got a DDT sprayer. A lot of stuff is taking up residence in the tower. The desk has a lot more stuff on it. So. Anyway, now I'm outside the tower. And this is what it actually looks like from the outside. Looks like it's something that was probably put up in either the teens or the 20s. The bay window is very neat. It doesn't have many of the embellishments that you would see before World War I. So I'm just guessing that it's something in the 1920s. Might even be 30s if they didn't have the money to use brick. Okay. This gets the class name for the tower. All right, that looks good. So I also try to keep the photos above 300K because otherwise, if it's really nothing in them, but I'll usually increase the quality if there's more than that. So to talk to my friend Malcolm here, most sets I will do are in groups of 48. But today I'm only have 34, so this should go a little bit faster than it normally does once we get rolling here. And a bunch of them are just on the distant signal, so I can bang those out pretty quick. All right, I'm gonna go check in the chat, see what people are talking about. Hi everybody, any questions? Sorry, my friend's a little quiet for Jessica. If you weren't here at the beginning.
Yeah, I'm trying to hold the mic close to my mouth. This is about as good as I can get.
Oh, hey, they finally moved the T and the S motor. Wait, did they move them or are they still being moved? The New York Central T and S motors stuck in upstate New York. I did a YouTube video on them 11 years ago. I went through the woods and found them.
Up near Albany. Right?
Yes, yeah. Yes. Did everyone hear about the land? Yeah, so Jessica, feel free to fill us in the chat of what's going on. Oops. There we go. Oh, in a lot where? New York State or Connecticut? So it looks like they're starting to be moved. That's good. So that's nice. That lined up very well with me moving on to the next thing. So of course you're going to get some signal stuff. This is 2007, so it's about 8 years after the CSX purchase of Conrail. At this point in time, CSX still hadn't quite unified all of its rule books and such. So they still had special DTC rules, which is direct traffic control. Form D, still had DCS, and I think they had their own TWC, track warrant control. Today, it's all been unified under track warrant, but it uses a lot of the terminologies, including Form Ds. I'm pretty sure, something like that. They still use a lot of DTC stuff.
Is an all track warrant controlled by Form D?
So Form D is a NORAC specific formage on Norfolk Southern. I think it's called like an EC1. In CSX, I don't know what the name of the form is, but they still refer to DCS in the rules or in the nomenclature, which form stands for Form D Control System. But they formally call the rule like TWC. Or no, it's called TWC. So they had two types of rules. TWC-DTC, which is track warrant direct traffic control, which was on non-Conrail, and TWC-DCS, which was the NORAC. They got rid of the DTC, but they didn't just call it TWS. They now call it TWS-DCS. So I'm pretty sure the DCS name is living on. But here we have a Conrail station sign with a begin block right at the Amtrak's dwarf signal. That's the 4N. For whatever reason, the Ys are designated track 4. Usually they would be called track 9. That's what Amtrak always will give to its random freight tracks going in there. But here it's track 4. Let me go find that picture. I wish these were in order. There it is. 4M. There's a I found a typo from 15 years ago. One of the other reasons I'm doing this is to eliminate stupid stuff like typos. All right, since I'm renaming this anyway, I might as well just go all the way out. BOWIE. There we go. Half my effort on here is getting the names right. I use for Malcolm's benefit. Instead of doing a lot of stuff with tags, I have a very robust file name policy that makes it easier to search that way. So all I need to do is I do the file name once, and that's what. Okay. Sharpen, then resize. There we go. Perfect. Oh, and there's also a DCS style. I'm not sure if CSX uses that square sign or that's a leftover from Conrail and NORAC for a 10 mile an hour permanent speed restriction back there. Something I can do, depending on, I guess I'm on Baltimore Division. Do I have Pope's Creek on this? Oh, stupid. Adobe changed how it does things, and now I'm always confused. Pope's Creek, perfect. And CSX does theirs in alphabetical order. There's your RF&P sub, Pope's Creek. Pope's Creek, like I said, it serves two power plants, yes. 25, 30 miles an hour. And this is the 2005 timetable. Yes. So see, it's TWC DCS, Norfolk single rules, Northeast Corridor. There's a spring switch. Oh man, there's a spring switch. I didn't get good photos of the spring switch.
At BOWIE?
At BOWIE. I have a photo of it, but it's far away. I just thought it was a regular switch, so I didn't care. Okay, good enough. Next, here we just have the other thing. We'll just use it. And there's an insulated rail joint right there. I appear to be taking a photo through a fence. I think that this fence is not there anymore, because in 2019, the Conrail sign is still there, but they have a little walkway. So here I think I was taking a photo through like a fence or something. But today, there's also a bike trail there. So the bike trail is new. The station has their stuff in it. There's the tower. There's the C&O thing.
Does the bike trail go all the way to the MARC station at BOWIE State?
I bet it does. Let's check. He asked if the bike trail. So let's zoom in. There's the bike trail.
Let me take my bike on mark and get there more easily.
No. Well, it takes you to surface streets. Let's see what this. Let me see if there's an extra trail here. No, it's just a small bike path that goes along the front. But I think that they have plans to construct a bike path all the way to Bowie State. I've seen those bike. There's like a sign there. I think that was indicating that those are future plans.
That would be good.
Yep, nice way to access Bowie State. Although, I mean, yeah, that's a way to get to the tower from Bowie State, since you can already get to Bowie State. So, just for people who didn't notice, this Conrail era station sign is still there as of 2019. No. Come on. All right, there we go. I don't know how much this northern end of the Y, and you can see on this photo the rails are pretty rusty. Amtrak might use it to literally Y equipment. But I don't know. There's not a lot of freight on this part of the NEC, but there is. There are customers on Amtrak, although they are losing. There are fewer than there used to be. So that might be used if a local needs to drop some cars and come back and come up the other way. I don't know my local operations. A lot of people who are on the ground rail fans, locals who will go out every day of the week and twice on Sundays, they're the ones who will typically be more aware of what the local freights are, what their symbols are, and such. Did I get this straightened out? Yeah, it's straight. So today, this is still pretty much the same. This is just, again, the old foundation for the tower that was left in place. The PRO was pretty good about having towers with foundations. Some of the other wooden ones that you would see on more basic railroads, there's often no evidence of them. All right, we're good to go. Next, here we have the BOWIE substation. I visited, again, I got some better photos of it in 1999. I forget which one this is, but you know the drill, 25 hertz. Definitely a lot more overgrowth here in August than there is in November or December when I went in 2024. Sorry, 2019. It's not 2024 yet. Let's see if I have any photos of the substation. I think I took them first. Okay, here we go. Oh, cool. In 2019, it was all backlit, so this is I think Amtrak has definitely been on more of a kick of getting vegetation off the right-of-way areas than it used to be up through about 2010. Here we have a nice zoom view of the block station and the 4N signal there, showing it lit up. I guess going higher. There it goes. Get the red out. So for Malcolm, who might not have seen me do this, generally, a lot of people who might spend their time trying to set up the perfect photo, I try to take reasonable photos, but I always will go back after the fact. I will look for things, if the horizon isn't level, if it's cloudy, if it needs to have the saturation punched up a little bit, if it needs to be a little more bright. So there's a variety of things that I learned to do, and I've sort of dialed in, so I can just sort of go straight through them and get it done up. Where the heck is that one? There it is, right there. Again with the 4M. All right, Just save this one out. And the other thing that I always try to be doing is making sure that I create what end up being unique file names. Now again, the interesting bit back in the day, the majority of the interlocking is located north of this location. Back in the day, it was exclusively north of this location. But at this point in time, when the NECIP came through, they expanded the interlocking limits. So there's, they have higher speed switches. It's not high speed; they're 45 mile an hour. But they did change the geometry around. As you can see here, it was back in the day, so you could be able to stack both these crossovers, but you didn't have a full way to go from track 1 to track 3. I mean, why would you? Those are a very weird and uncommon move. But in the Amtrak, they not only they flipped them around, they completely rearranged it. So this is where the old lengthy interlocking was down there, and then the new one was they made it almost a good full mile here between 120 and 121. You might know this is an odd configuration because usually you'll have these. They will at most 3-track crossovers. They will try to overlap them a little bit. Again, sorry to go into weirdo detail here. Like here at Grove, that's how you normally do a 3-track full crossover. So BOWIE, even in and of itself, it is an oddball configuration these days. Okay. Another thing that I always try to do these is crop out the junk. So here we have a lot of ballast and a lot of vegetation. So that just goes bye-bye. Most people don't put the insane amounts of time and effort to do this with their photos, but I try to. This is what eats up my nights. So another thing for Malcolm is he's always wondering, why am I always so late with my photos? Well, it's because like 10 years ago I got lazy and I wasn't getting my photos out in time. And then I got a year behind, and I've been a year behind ever since because I just can't get caught up due to the quantities. Another interesting thing we'll get better photos in is there's the BOWIE, the NECIP era relay hut for Amtrak. People might not realize, but even with all the NEC improvements and PTC and whatever they're doing, a lot of the interlocking plants on the NEC are still all relay, including this one. 1 second. Oops. There we go. Here's the photo he saw earlier from on one of my that I had up. The only train that I got that day was a double-headed pair of AM7 toasters. I think these are rebuilds. These are the ACs. But of course, I was out of position to get a good photo. But I got them peeking out from behind the vegetation there. And that bridge, I think at some point, if you go...
They usually use double headers for long distance trains and just a single for regionals.
It would depend. It depended on if they were an AC or a DC, because the DC ones only had 4,300 continuous horsepower, and a bunch of that was going to... And some of that, I think they might have also had to dip into that for their HEP. But the ACs could pull anything out of town, but they didn't quite have the weight for the tractive effort. They might be slippery. I thought that there might have been the bridge looks new, so I'm looking for evidence of an old grade crossing. But if there is one, I'm not seeing it. There's a bunch of old grade crossing locations on the southern NEC, but I don't think that BOWIE was one of them. There are ones that are very old too, but you can still see where the old road would go. There he is. I'll keep this name. Nothing wrong with it. So one of the things, like when I first did this photo, here you can see that I cropped it a little tighter, trying to get the size down, because again, a lot of people were still literally on 56K back then, and I would get complaints when I would share the photos on like a message board. So this was today back then was saved at 200K. and more aggressively cropped. This is about double the size with more relaxed cropping. So that's the sort of thing that I'm trying to undo from even though I was still doing that in 2007. Around 2008 was where I got way better at my I stopped. IT finally got better. So here we just have a quick thing of the BOWIE substation. One interesting misconception I had, because I didn't have a lot of photos of these. The new type of transformer is this one guy over here. I can sort of there, that guy right there. That's made by made by a company in Pennsylvania near Pittsburgh. Amtrak bought a lot of them, like 94 of them in 2005. This is one of the older ones. Now I thought that this was something, because it's painted gray, that it was made like in the 80s, and this went in with NECIP. I think that just got repainted at some point, and that's an original 1930s transformer, because it looks very similar to the ones that I would see at Thorndale. If I didn't have so much time today, I would go and pull that up. But those have since vanished, so I haven't even been able to see them. So here we have this is the number 2, BOWIE substation. This is the number 12 transformer. I've already looked them up. I have there's Library of Congress photos, and this is the power dispatch room. And the power dispatch offices have these giant diagrams with all the substations and everything labeled appropriately. So I just go to those Library of Congress photos, and that's substation 1. So it's transformer 1 and transformer 12. 1, the old one, 12, the newer one. 12 just means it's there's 2 circuits number 1 and number 2. First transformer, usually a 1 and a 2 that are directly connected to those circuits, and 12 would be like on a crossfeed. Most substations only have 2. If they need more for increased traffic, they'll add a third. A lot of the substations, the PR was very forward-looking, and they would often have way more spaces. They only have 2 installed, but they'd have pads for 4, assuming that as in the future they would need more and more electrification. Unfortunately, the actual future involved less and less electrification. But I believe at this point there are no original substation transformers left. The last one I was aware of was at Parksburg, and that went in the last year or so. So that is unfortunate. Here we just have the control hut. A lot of times they would have stuff for the signal power inside. That's why you'll see cable penetrations. For the 100 hertz signal power, these rooms would have motor generators that would create that 100 hertz current, because you're not going to get that. That's not from a utility at all. So that's why you have these little equipment. These not only have the remote control equipment in them, but they would have a variety for the signal power. This is what it looks like in 2019, and then we can go back, and here's what it looked like in 2018. Pretty much the same, just more weeds. What would I have called that back in the day? Substation. There we go. Good enough. And here we just have another quick thing of the thing. Oops. Sorry, sometimes I have dead air here. Okay, here we go. One of the reasons I'm not going to continue doing this, at a certain point my photos get competent, and B, they become increasingly more of, here's 500 signal photos, so I can't really talk a lot over them. I've said that multiple times, but here. So this is the Pope's Creek secondary going out of the Y. That first track with the red switch stand flag, that's the other leg of the Y. You can notice that it's set reverse, and that's also a spring switch. So trains coming down the opposite direction can just go that way and automatically restore it. You can notice how much more rusty the rails are in the foreground than they are in the background. Again, not much uses this leg of the Y to go south down the Pope's Creek. That other switch is an online customer, and that's still there to this day. It's some sort of equipment company. I don't know how much service they get, but the switch and the track is still there. Where is that? There. No, that's not it. There it is. For the ease of labeling, I'm labeling this as part of BOWIE interlocking, even though it's not. And last one of this set of 2 or 3, and finally we get to the PRD distance signal on the Pope's Creek secondary. Like I said, as far as I'm aware, this is still here. This is a fixed distant displaying caution. This can be, today this would be called, Conrad would call this approach restricting. CSX would just call this a fixed distance signal. What's always amazing on this is, despite the fact that it's this thing, it's basically, it's a sign, not a cop. Whoever the maintainers are, this is one of the best focused position lights that I've seen in a while. Position lights I'll get into it in a second, are very finicky, and this one is very well maintained. So I'm not sure if it's just because it's a golden boy of the local signaling crews, or what, but they're doing an excellent job keeping it going. All I have to do is find there it is. This is the photo. I also signal this. I'm also labeling this as part of the BOWIE interlocking, simply because there's no other signaling on the Pope's Creek. So the best way is to associate it with the parent interlocking that it's a part of. All right, I'm going to check the chat right here, and we're down to our last set. And this last set will go more quickly because there's not a lot to talk about. It's just about 10 photos of the distance signal, but it gives me, I can definitely make a mountain out of a molehill here. Let's see if we have any questions in the chat. What's going on? They're in a lot. New York State, Danbury is still making room for them. Once they're on site, they'll be restored. That's super. In theory, those I know I've literally been inside both of those. It is feasible to restore them to operation and run them because they don't have any transformers in them. There's nothing that high tech that you could need to make them go. Oh, cool! Thank you for the Twitter DM. I'll take a look at that in a second. I can't wait to see that.
The museum has a tourist train, or
they kind of do. I know that they can run stuff. Yes, the CSX speed sign should be diamond shaped, so that looks like it's a leftover NORAC one. Transformers were installed 1928 and 35. Yeah, so yeah, I know that that's when the original ones went in, but back in the day, some of them would be black and some of them would be gray. And I always made the assumption that the gray ones were from the 1980s, and because I had few photos of them, I wasn't able to actually look just to see what they looked like. In terms of design, I hadn't been close enough to the old vintage ones, and now that I have been, it's clear that I think that those are a 30s vintage as opposed to something later. So here we have a nice zoom shot of this guy here. I love the foliage at this time of year is quite nice. I caught it on a nice my second gen digital camera, which was an Olympus Power Shot. Again, nothing fancy, wasn't DSLR. It did colors very, very well, way better than my current Canons. Canons just make everything look like they're cold. And I always have to do a lot of color correction with them. This stuff I have to do far less color correction.
I heard about a device that turns an old film camera into a digital camera. That like you put it in place of the film and it turns it into digital.
I've heard of that, and it shouldn't be that difficult to do. Depending on what that would work for a lot of that's useful for a lot of, what do you call those, fixed lens cameras, because anything with a DSLR, you're always in a position where you can take the lens off and put it on a new digital body. But like something like a Brownie or a large variety of fixed lens cameras where you really want to see what it saw in those older lenses, that would be very useful. But it shouldn't be that difficult to be able to drop in a. I can't speak from experience. I'm just mentioning that. That sounds like it's something that would be very feasible. They have a variety of digital stuff. Although most people, if you're usually the value in a film camera is the film process itself as opposed to the lenses. Although something with a really nice lens would be, it'd be nice to see what like a digital Brownie would generate. So here we have the marker light. These, nothing fancy in theory about it, but typically when you would see these lower marker lights, that indicated that the signal indication, or the signal aspect, had something to do with the PRR's manual block system, something that doesn't get a lot of good coverage today. The caution aspect that you saw with that weird restricting slash on the upper head, that was originally part of the Pennsylvania Railroad's manual block, panoply of manual block signals. That would include vertical slash over a marker light would be clear block. Long Island Railroad technically still uses that for clear to next interlocking. Or manual block clear. It basically means I'm at a tower, I'm giving you have a non-track signaled clear block to the next tower or office or whatever. Then there would be the caution one, which basically says like, yeah, we think that the track is occupied, so careful. And then there's stop and proceed, which is the horizontal over a marker, which you still see that today. I think there's an approach over a marker, but I'm not sure. No, there isn't. The way that you would tell that you are entering manual block territory, or you can look if something's manual block, is that instead of an approach, you'll have vertical, horizontal, and this backward slash all on the top head. So it gives, instead of approach, clear, and stop, it can give stop, possibly stop and proceed, but then clear block and then caution. So again, yes, today it is approach restricting, I know.
Should be run at restricted speed?
So, no, caution was more complicated than that. It's sort of fun. So it basically would say passenger trains were to run at restricted speed or not approach. Freight trains could run at up to 40 miles an hour, but had to be able to stop clear of any facing point switch. And I think had to be able to. I'm not sure if they had to stop or they had to be prepared to meet an obstruction. I can go find it in a second, but
40 seems too fast to be able to.
Yeah, they just were accepting a lot more risk back then. It might be up to 40, but also having to, if you could see the track ahead of you, unlike restricting where there was a broken rail or something, I think it let you go a little quicker. CSX has something like this in their yard limit rules. When you have signals and yard limits, they did or had special rules. They had special rules that complemented a normal block signal. But I can go and find that in a second. Hold on. I used to be able to go and get the 1956 PRR rule book, but unfortunately that sort of went away. Here we go. Caution. Trains exceeding medium speed must, once reduced to medium, approach next signal, prepare to stop where a facing point switch is connected, approach switch. Okay. So in this case, it's, sorry, I wasn't quite 100% accurate. It's you reduce to medium, and you approach every facing point signal prepared to stop. I could have sworn. Oh, sorry. there's a difference between caution and permissive block. Permissive block doesn't have the marker light. That's block occupied for passenger trains stop, for trains other than passenger proceed, but stop short and then not seeing 15. Okay. So caution lets you go at medium. I guess you're protected by train order, but you have to still approach the facing points, which is prepared to stop. I was close. I'm pretty good at remembering things, but I'll usually get. I can always remember 80% of a thing. This is why I always use weasel words now. I'd always get, when I used to fight with conservatives on message boards, I would always remember some factoid 80% of the way, and then they would, if you get anything wrong, they would find a way to twist the argument to pound on you making a technical error. But I generally remember stuff. Today, caution is simply be prepared to approach next signal, prepared to stop. Because they have radios and things, you don't really need the whole mess of manual blocky stuff. But caution only appeared in manual block territory or otherwise unsignaled territory. Okay. See, every time I try to increase the light on it, it goes red shifted a little bit. Okay, good enough. Now, of course, in 2019, I went back, and I was able to... what I was able to do, what I was in 2007, what I was able to do in 10 photos, I probably did in 50. And the thing is that my weird obsessive, I keep saying this, my weird obsessive photo taking is definitely paying off. Because I think we are, even today, we're at the point where I can go and you can use a variety of AI or VR technologies to recreate, to take all these photos and then recreate these virtually. For those 5 people who really want to go into VR and see a Pennsylvania Railroad position light, I've pretty much been able to, I'll be able to make that happen at some point in the future. So there you go. And make sure this is a little brighter. There we go. Looks good. Wait, what am I doing? Okay, I just want to make it brighter. You know what I can do here? Oops. All right, first we're going to make this brighter now. There it goes. And then I'm going to make this bigger because I can. So if I get under for Malcolm here, if I'm significantly under 300K, I'll be able to go in and make the photo larger or increase the compression or decrease the amount of compression to get it into a little bit, that gives me more room to play with the quality. Of course, I always have all the masters; they're all backed up. I pulled these off of backups myself to be able to play with them today. So,
Does Amtrak maintain this signal or CSX?
I don't know. That's a very good question. So I think it's CSX or Conrail because Amtrak they use the PRR style of painting the entire position light black or coloring it black, whereas Conrail would paint the lower half. Penn Central and Conrail would paint the lower half silver. So this looks like it's a
CSX owns the Pope's Creek branch.
Yes, so I'm almost positive that that CSX has been maintaining this, and they will. Whoever it is coming in and repainting it, keeping it painted the way it was. So, don't. Hopefully, no one from CSX is watching this stream, and will come in and decry the loss of dollars. All right, that's. I'm going to change that name. Just got 4 left. And we're almost good to go here. That looks like a sycamore tree behind it. Sometimes these don't quite hit in the way that I need. Alright, that works. There we go. 3 left. Got the marker. There's a
Union switching signal.
Yep. There was a. If you see it, there's a little amber cone that gives the light its color. So this is a good thing to. I just reminded what I want to talk about. I've said this again and again with these, but I got a friend here. So the interesting thing about the USNS position light modules, what they could call the PL2 or the PL, I mean, they'll all be PL1, 2, or 3. These were designed in the early 1915, 1920 period when there was no mains power. A lot of this stuff was done by battery. So these were designed to throw a small amount of light a long distance. The bulbs in here were on the order of 2 to 5 watts. And what they did is, unlike almost every other signal you have today, these used a what do you call that? A parabolic mirror. So in almost all cases, you never design a railroad signal with an internal parabolic mirror, because if you shine a headlight at it, you're going to get the signal will light up. These have a lens system inside that prevents them showing phantom aspects. And it's designed, again, for maximum light efficiency. By the time you get to the 1920s...
Miniature version of the Fresnel lens used in lighthouses?
It's a little bit. There's a lens for projection, and there's another piece of glass in there to take incoming light and reflect it out of the way. And then you have this little cone that you can barely see there. I think a guy at Harris Tower told me that the maintainers would call them witches' tits. Those little pointy, cones. So these. The thing is that remember I said this signal looks really well lit. It's because that you have to, if you don't maintain them and you let them get out of focus, the amount of light exiting it will be impacted pretty severely. So a lot of times these are dark or don't look right. It's because the parabolic mirror hasn't quite been aligned properly. Maybe when they came in to replace the bulb. This one looked like it should have looked back when the PRR had cheap manpower to do things. And it looks like as brilliant. So people who see them today, they aren't necessarily seeing an amber position light, the 5 that are left. They aren't necessarily seeing that in the way that they're intended to be seen. I feel like a cinema snob here. One second. And the new position lights, the ones that Amtrak buys from Safe Train, those do not have internal mirrors. They use a high capacity internal light to throw the required amount. But again, in 1915, if you had a high discharge lamp, it would burn out in not only would it drain your battery, it would burn out in 3 days. So bulb technology wasn't good enough to have anything that could that was as bright as you wanted it to be. So that's why you have searchlights. Again, a 5-watt bulb going through a very complicated Fresnel lens and or other magnification lenses to throw that little bit of light 2 miles down the track. But finally, when you get to the 1920s with the G heads or whatever things you have, that's you can finally take a bulb without any other with not much other lensing around it and really blast that light down the tracks. So here you can see some of the. So here, if I zoom in on this, there's the witch's tit amber filter, and then behind that, the little grid, that's part of the lensing system. So I don't think it's really a Fresnel lens, but it's a different kind of glass lens. If I was to pull up the patent application on these, there's 3 or 4 parts to the lens assembly. and that's why they were effective. The PRR could afford them, but they kind of went they went out of style. The last, I think I've mentioned this before, the last project that used these sorts of signals was the Secaucus connection in North Jersey. In about 2002 or 2003, they vanished from the what do you call that? The catalog. Yes, I was tracking the USS catalog at the time. When they got, when Ansaldo took, I think, a more hands-on approach, they dropped some of their products that probably weren't selling well. I'm sure you can, they're all over the place. Cape May Seashore uses them as their snitch lights on their grade crossing equipment on the Cape May branch, which has been out of service now for who knows how long, which is also unfortunate. Okay, this is the last picture, just a little bit farther view of the distance signal. And again, this is how they're supposed to look, very, very bright, and a lot of the ones today aren't anything close to that. Sometimes you'll get them nice, but not necessarily. Although the LED ones, I will say that the LED ones do bring back, the few that there are do bring back the brilliance. All right, last thing, let me find the name for this. Well, anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in. I know that this was isn't the most riveting one. I forget what I'm doing next time. Next time, I think I'm going to be back for the entire month, the entire week of Thanksgiving. So that's going to be 4 or 5 back-to-back streams. I will go find an interesting set of photos or 2 that'll take me 4 or 5 days to complete. There we go. And that should be fun. So tune in. That's going to be starting on November, the night of probably the 19th, and going on through the 20th, 21st, 2nd, 3rd, 24th, I'm pretty sure. Although don't count on that last one on that Black Friday. All right. Let me just see if there's anything else in the chat or if anyone has any comments as I try to finish this up. And thank you, Malcolm, for chiming in and sitting here and listening in rapt attention. Anything else we got? Okay. Bowie. Interesting. I'm not sure that's a silver. It's more like a gray, but that's good to know. Oh, that's an interesting point. GE versus Westinghouse. I wish I had more photos of those. I'll go around and check that out with some of my other stuff here. Anyway, thank you everybody.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
And thank you for hanging. I hope that wasn't lame or boring or whatever.